Chapter 451. He glanced at Qiao Jin angrily. She's a young person too. Are you saying she's a pervert? Mu Xiangshan said, she's better than you. Mu Zilian stood up and said angrily, I'm not eating anymore. Qiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan didn't say anything. Mu Zilian, he suddenly turned and rushed out of the door. I can't stay in this house anymore. I'm going out. Mu Xiangshan sighed. Remember what Qiao Jin said last night. Be careful when you go out. Your glabella is dark. Mu Zilian, he was just about to go out. Grandpa, it wasn't appropriate for you to curse him, right? Mu Zilian didn't take it to heart. Qiao Jin was a quack. How would she know so much? Was the fortune-telling method that she learned from the internet definitely good? Naive. After Mu Zilian left, Qiao Jin put down her bowl and chopsticks. I'm done eating. I'm going out to play. Mu Xiangshan never said anything about Qiao Jin going out. Qiao Jin had saved a child last night. But soon, she realized something that even she couldn't solve. She was banned. That's right. Banned. Including her Weibo account and her fortune-telling shop. The reason was that she was superstitious. This was not allowed in the country. Qiao Jin didn't even blink. She knew who was behind this. There were many fortune-telling shops in the cat treasure shop. Not to mention, there were many scammers on Weibo and WeChat under the guise of fortune-telling. Others weren't banned. Why was she the only one targeted? She knew that Wanyan Wei, who she let go last night, wasn't someone who knew her place. Qiao Jin curled her lips. She wasn't worried about her account being banned. She still had 10 to 20,000 yuan in it. She had already taken out a sum of money, so she wasn't in a hurry. She hadn't gone far before someone came knocking on her door. The people who came to look for her were the two siblings from the Zhong family. Zhongli Peining rolled down the car window and looked directly at Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin, can we have a chat? Qiao Jin glanced at them with a faint smile. Did the Wanyan clan send you here? Zhongli Shiyu's eyes immediately darkened. Zhongli Peining's smile was a bit stiff, but she didn't deny it. Yes. Qiao Jin nodded. This time, he did not refuse Zhongli Peining and her brother. He got into the car directly. Zhongli Shiyu started the car. Qiao Jin didn't ask where he was going. He just looked at the scenery outside the car window. Zhongli Peining looked at Qiao Jin and hesitated. Qiao Jin, you won't kill people, right? Qiao Jin looked at Zhongli Peining with a smile. So Wanyan Wei told you that I killed the couple and held her there. That's why you came here. Now you're ready to deal with me? Zhongli Peining didn't expect her to guess so clearly. However, when she thought about her foresight ability, she suddenly understood. Actually, I don't believe it. Of course you can't believe it. Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. I'm just a foresight-type spiritual reader. I roughly know what you want to do. However, you don't think that I have such a strong ability to do these things, right? Zhongli Shiyu's cold gaze locked onto her from the rearview mirror. Then how did you know about Wanyan Wei? Qiao Jin said, I said that I'm a foresight master. Of course, I can get information about myself in advance. Chapter 452. She tilted her head and looked out of the window. Wanyan Wei did a fortune-telling in my shop. I knew that she was a murderer. I called the police and she framed me to clear her name. Isn't this normal? Zhongli Peining said, she said that you appeared at the crime scene. Qiao Jin said, what she says is the truth. Qiao Jin just smiled faintly and didn't completely deny it. However, for Zhongli Peining, her words had some meaning of denial. Wanyan Wei was lying, so Qiao Jin's words were understandable. Zhongli Peining and her brother looked at each other. There was some hesitation in her eyes. We want to bring you back to the spirit group for a small test. You don't mind, right? Qiao Jin said, I don't mind. Hearing that she was going to the spirit group, she wanted to see what the layout of the spirit group was. She wanted to see if she could find the place where they hid the spirit seed. Although she felt that the Zhong siblings didn't know about the spirit seed. The spirit group was located in the suburbs. Zhongli Shiyu drove for a long time. The location was also very hidden. It should be private territory nearby. There were basically no cars coming and going. Instead, she felt the aura of a spiritual psychic. When Xiao Jin went over, she found that this should be a restricted area. In the middle was a tall villa building. The door was tightly shut. It was a few minutes' drive inside. Along the way, there were many more feelings of surveillance. The surrounding landscape was built like a park. There were also small bars. There were many people walking on the side of the road. They all had the aura of a spiritual psychic. This was the spirit group's territory. Seeing Zhongli Shiyu drive in, many spiritual psychics looked over curiously. Xiao Jin rolled down the car window. Many spiritual psychics saw her and were a little surprised. Is she the legendary wizard with the ability of foresight? Wow, this ability is very strong. It's almost rare. Didn't she say that she wouldn't join the spirit group? Why is she here now? I heard that she somehow provoked the Wanyan family. Listening to their whispers, Xiao Jin learned some information. The Wanyan clan was much more high-profile than she had imagined. When the car drove to the villa area, it was much more spacious. Except for a few sofas in the hall, most of the other places were installed with modern high-tech equipment. There were also some spiritual readers who did not shy away from using their abilities in the villa area. Basically, they were all common types. The Zhong siblings brought Xiao Jin out of the car. Xiao Jin saw two young people and a middle-aged man standing in front of the door. The young people were a man and a woman. Their expressions were serious. After Zhongli Shiyu got out of the car, he shouted, "Uncle Shi, I've brought him." The middle-aged man nodded. He was dressed in a suit and his hairstyle was styled meticulously with hair gel. He looked very fashionable. If it wasn't for his age, he would have been an influential figure when he was young. The man and woman behind him were much younger. At this moment, they were frowning slightly as they looked at Xiao Jin. The boy's gaze seemed to be sizing her up. Wanyan Shi waved his hand. "Bring her in." His tone was very rude, as if he was used to giving orders. The Zhong siblings followed him as if they were used to it. Xiao Jin stood in place but did not move. Her tone was very indifferent. "Since we're here, at least tell me why you brought me here." Chapter 453. Zhongli Shiyu tilted his head and looked at her mockingly. "Don't you have the ability to predict the future? You can't even think of this." Zhongli Peining pulled Zhongli Shiyu's arm and explained to her gently, "Don't be afraid. Uncle Shi is from the Wanyan family. He just wants to ask you about what Wanyan Wei said. If you're not suspicious, we'll let you go after questioning you." Xiao Jin looked at Zhongli Peining. Her beautiful eyes did not even blink. "It was you who brought me here. You had to bear the consequences for your actions." Zhongli Peining didn't understand but still nodded. "I know. I'll definitely send you back." She thought Xiao Jin was afraid. After all, this was the spirit group and not the territory of ordinary people. Here, there were spiritualists everywhere and they could subdue Xiao Jin at any time. Even if she had the ability to predict the future, how could she withstand a real battle? Xiao Jin then said, "All right." The other spiritualists looked over curiously but didn't dare to be too obvious because the Wanyan family was present. In the crowd, when He Yarrow pulled Lan Xiaoni out, she happened to see Xiao Jin being brought in by them. She didn't look good at that time. Why was Xiao Jin here? And he was with the Wanyan family? Fortunately, there were many people who knew about this. He Yarrow casually asked someone and got a piece of information. Xiao Jin killed someone? He Yarrow almost felt dizzy. She didn't doubt Xiao Jin's ability, but it was impossible for Xiao Jin to kill an ordinary person. He Yarrow had heard of the Wanyan family's style of doing things. They actually dared to touch Xiao Jin? She was silent for a moment and didn't panic. She wasn't worried about Xiao Jin. But she was afraid that the spirit group would anger Xiao Jin and the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Xiao Jin was brought into the villa. This place was connected in all directions and all the rooms were used for special purposes. There were 2 floors underground. Here, it was built with a special material. The surroundings were built with a bright white special material and there was a huge mirror in the middle. The double-sided mirror could be seen from the outside but the people inside couldn't see outside. It was a good place for interrogation. There was no signal and they couldn't send messages out, so they didn't even monitor Xiao Jin's phone. This place was made to look like a meeting room. Xiao Jin, Wanyan, and Zhongli family's siblings came in and closed the door. They were completely isolated from the outside. Xiao Jin didn't sit down. She just looked around slowly. The dazzling white, coupled with the lighting, made the meeting room seem too bright, as if it would not give people too much pressure. However, through the mirror, she could sense that there were countless people looking at her from behind. And no S. She curled her lips into a smile. She didn't expect the Feng family to be here too. Of course, since she had been brought here for interrogation, there would definitely be many people who were curious about her and coveted her ability to predict the future. The higher-ups of the spirit group would also want to know how far Xiao Jin's ability could be used. Sit. Wanyan, she asked Xiao Jin to sit down very politely. The 5 of them sat opposite Xiao Jin. He was like a leader. When he sat down, he didn't speak and gave people a lot of pressure. Of course, this was only relative to others. Xiao Jin sat down slowly. When she sat down on the white chair, her body flashed with a light and some data flashed. Chapter 454. On the table in front of her, a row of data flashed. It was written with special numbers, like a special password used by the spirit group. Wanyan, she just glanced at it and frowned. C rank wizard. The girl next to him looked at it curiously. Only C rank. Zhongli Peining and Zhongli Shiyu frowned. Xiao Jin's ability didn't look like C rank. Xiao Jin smiled and asked, "How do you classify wizards?" Wanyan, she looked at her. Of course. However, only a few spiritual readers knew that the spirit group divided them into ranks. Most of the spiritual readers were only C rank, so there was no need to let them know that there were higher ranks. Not to mention the concept of array masters and wizards. Xiao Jin understood. Oh. In her eyes, there were only ordinary and slightly extraordinary spiritual readers. It wasn't as detailed as them. Wanyan, she raised his chin. The girl next to him took out a tablet and placed it in front of Xiao Jin. This is your account, right? You opened a fortune-telling shop online and are quite accurate. With your ability, how much can you know about the future? It was Xiao Jin's chat history. Of course, the chat information was in the background. This was information on the internet, so Xiao Jin couldn't control it. Unless she didn't want others to investigate, the data would automatically disappear. However, she didn't want to hide it so thoroughly. Xiao Jin looked at the row of clear chat records and touched her chin. If you have doubts about my business, I can understand. Why did you block my account? The girl didn't expect her to ask this and coughed embarrassedly. This, the young boy next to her said faintly, spreading this on the internet is feudal superstition. Moreover, you should understand that your identity as a spiritual reader can't be exposed to ordinary people. Your predictions are too accurate. It may not be a good thing for ordinary people. They will always suspect your existence. Even the country will pay attention to you. Wanyan, she said, being capable is God's love for you. It's not something that is announced in front of others. People who are too high profile usually don't have a good ending. Xiao Jin, I'm just trying to make some money. Am I in your way? It was at most 10,000 yuan a day. For a spiritual reader like them, was that even money worth it? Everyone, Wanyan, she frowned. We won't ask about your fortune-telling, but you weren't at home last night, right? As he spoke, the young girl swiped across the tablet, and a photo of the dead couple from last night appeared on it. To be honest, most people would scream when they saw this, but Xiao Jin didn't even blink. She only looked at them quietly for 2 seconds. They're very pitiful, aren't they? The child was only a few months old. Don't you know better than me how they died? Why ask me? Wanyan, she slapped the table heavily. Wei Wei would never do such a thing. Xiao Jin said, the police are arresting her, not me. Wanyan, he scolded her harshly. You are using your ability to do such a cruel thing. They are just ordinary people. How did they offend you? You want to kill them and frame Wei Wei? Xiao Jin was not frightened by his tone at all. She still calmly put her elbows on the table. Normal people wouldn't ask this question. Before your daughter came to the fortune-telling, I didn't know who the couple was. Chapter 455. Wanyan Wei was Wanyan Shi's daughter. Otherwise, why would this man appear here? Wanyan Shi's pupils constricted and he said hatefully, Wei said last night that you controlled her there and waited for the police to frame her. You're a spiritual reader, what can't you do? This time, even Zhongli Peining couldn't help but remind Wanyan Shi, Uncle Shi, Qiao Jin is only a Class C spiritual reader with foresight. Her ability was a little special, but she didn't have the ability to fight. How could she do such a thing? In reality, everyone was well aware of who was the culprit last night. If the Wanyan family had spent some effort to suppress Wanyan Weibo, it would have been fine. However, they had to frame Qiao Jin. What were they thinking? Wanyan Shi also knew. He even knew that he was talking nonsense. However, he at least believed that Qiao Jin must have appeared there last night. He said, no matter what, the death of this couple has something to do with you. Wanyan Wei always revealed things that she didn't dare to tell others. Last night, Qiao Jin appeared there. It was true. But how did she do it? There was no surveillance and it even showed that Qiao Jin was at home. Wanyan Shi suspected that Qiao Jin might not be a spiritual reader with foresight. She probably had other abilities that she didn't reveal. The machine could detect Qiao Jin's class, but it couldn't detect her ability. However, if she didn't have foresight, how could she explain the fortune-telling shop she opened on the internet? Could it be that she had several abilities? This situation was too rare. If so, even if Qiao Jin was a Class C, she was much more precious than others. This was just a guess. There was no evidence. Wanyan Shi was planning to pester endlessly. Qiao Jin sighed slightly. Where's the evidence? The law still needs evidence to punish people. The evidence of your daughter's murder is complete. As for me, you can't take it out. Are you planning to convict me directly? Wanyan Shi wanted to say something, but he suddenly heard something. He was wearing a headset. Someone must have said something in the headset. Soon, he left unwillingly. The girl holding the tablet said to Qiao Jin, my name is Wanyan Zhenzhen. You don't have to worry. We don't think you are a suspect. What happened to Wei Wei last night was probably because she was framed and you were the one who took the blame. You know, spiritual psychics have many abilities and there are always some unexpected things that are impossible to guard against. Our spirit group is indeed lacking in manpower and we can't guarantee that every spiritual psychic will be discovered. Qiao Jin smiled. Oh, is that so? Wanyan Zhenzhen said in a friendly and polite manner, our spirit group exists to protect the safety of ordinary people. Every matter related to a spiritual reader is not a trivial matter, so we must investigate it thoroughly. I know that Shiyu and Peining have looked for you before, but you said that you were not interested in joining the spirit group. Then I want to ask you, as a non-staff member, would you be willing to have the same salary and benefits as an official member? You only need to provide some information to our spirit group at special times. You have foresight, which is too precious for our spirit group. Her eyes seemed to be filled with beautiful expectations. When I look at you, I know that you are a very beautiful girl. I think you are willing to maintain social stability, right? Chapter 456. Wanyan Zhenzhen's words were vulgar, but there was a special magic in them. It was as if she could make people believe her words and even express a state of joy at her praise. This ability was too useless, but she should be a talent if she could be a diplomat. Qiao Jin's smile was indeed very beautiful. Well said, but I don't want to interfere with the affairs of the spirit group. Wanyan Zhenzhen's smile froze for a moment. Her ability had no effect on Qiao Jin. This situation could only be seen in a small number of people. The phone signal was cut off, but there was still time. Qiao Jin looked at the time on his phone. Actually, it was really rash of you to come to me directly today and blame me for what Wanyan Wei did. I advise you to let Wanyan Wei be punished. She has to pay the price for her mistakes. Otherwise, no one can imagine what will happen in the future, right? She stood up, smiling brightly and elegantly. She didn't seem to be bothered by this matter, but what she said made people feel a chill down their spines. Wanyan Junjun said, Wei Wei couldn't have killed anyone. She was framed. As soon as she finished speaking, several people's voices came from their headsets. Someone wants to take her away. Let her go. Wanyan Junjun and the others looked at each other, confused. There was actually someone who could bail Xiao Jin out from here? Xiao Jin smiled. Can I go now? Wanyan Junjun and the others were helpless, but there was nothing they could do. Since the news could reach here, it meant that the identity of the person who bailed out Xiao Jin was very important. Zhongli Peining took Xiao Jin out and apologized to Xiao Jin in a low voice. Miss Xiao, if I offended you today, I'm really sorry. Xiao Jin said, You don't have to apologize. Anyway, it was a matter of karma, so there was no need to apologize. Xiao Jin went outside and smiled at the person who came to pick him up. Mr. Song, we meet again. Song Shiyin looked at Xiao Jin and sighed. She ignored the shocked gazes of the others and led Xiao Jin to the car. Song Shiyin was so busy every day that she shouldn't have come to pick up Xiao Jin in person. But this was a special place, so Song Shiyin had to come in person. After getting into the car, Song Weiyin drove away and said to Xiao Jin, If Guanqing hadn't told me that you were taken away, I wouldn't have known that it was the spirit group. How did Miss Qiao provoke the spirit group? Xiao Jin's expression calmed down. Mr. Song, I should say that it was the spirit group that provoked me. It was very rash of them. Song Weiyin thought of the miraculous ability of the man who had saved her son. Her eyes flashed, but she didn't say anything. Xiao Jin asked, Mr. Song isn't a member of the spirit group. How did you find a way to take me out? Song Weiyin smiled. I've lived for so many years. At least I have some connections. I have a friend in the spirit group. It wasn't difficult for him to take Miss Qiao out. Xiao Jin immediately knew that the friend she was talking about was most likely someone in the upper echelon of the spirit group. After all, this friend was able to take him away from the Wanyan clan right under their noses. Xiao Jin didn't ask any more questions. He just nodded. Thank you, Mr. Song, for solving my problem and preventing more trouble. I will remember this favor. If you need any help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Song Weiyin said, Miss Qiao, you are too polite. I don't even know how to thank you for saving my son. This small matter is nothing. Chapter 457. Song Shiyin had just returned from abroad, but Song Yanqing had gone abroad. Song Shiyin sent Xiao Jin home and didn't ask much about her and the spirit group. How did Song Yanqing know that she was taken away by the spirit group? His ability didn't seem to work on her. She had some doubts, but she still called Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing was in a meeting at this time. When he saw the call, he made a pause gesture and got up to answer the phone outside the meeting room. You're out. His tone was relaxed. Wasn't it fun to walk around there? Xiao Jin chuckled. How did you know that I went in? Song Yanqing, some things don't need to be investigated with ability. Modern people have modern ways. My dad planted people in the spirit group. Someone informed me as soon as you went in. It could be seen that the Song family was still very powerful. Song Shiyin was an ordinary person, but she could plant people in the spirit group and know the higher-ups of the spirit group. It was no accident that Song Yanqing's fate was changed back then. There was a high probability that he was targeted by someone he knew. Xiao Jin, well, it's not surprising that they came to me. I knew when the woman was taken away by the police. This matter isn't over yet. Some people in the Wanyan family are now suspecting that I have more than one ability. Their family shouldn't be a simple family of spiritual readers. Some people behind them will probably soon guess that I'm an array master. Song Yanqing paused. What trouble will there be? Xiao Jin, it won't be big trouble. Wanyan Wei doesn't get what she deserves. The Wanyan family will walk the same path as the Feng family. The difference is that the Wanyan family didn't do anything outrageous. There will only be some trouble. I was the one who called the police to arrest Wanyan Wei. Because of me, the Wanyan family must have an answer. Wanyan Wei's matter had been passed to Song Yanqing. He saw what this woman had done in the information. He didn't know how to describe it. Some people were so stupid that they could reach a whole new level. Song Yanqing told Xiao Jin some of the information he knew. The Wanyan family is a relatively large family in the world of spiritual readers. There are many people in the family. Wanyan Wei's father is called Wanyan Shi and is the manager of a foundation. Both he and Wanyan Wei do not have any abilities. They only work in the spirit group and are responsible for handling the disputes between the real world and the world of spiritual readers. However, this time, he probably used his power for personal gain. Xiao Jin picked up the phone and walked into the house. He picked up a washed apple from the table and took a small bite. I feel that not only have your abilities improved very quickly, but you've also learned about the spirit group very quickly. Are spirit speakers' abilities to learn things so quickly? Probably. Song Yanqing's lips curled into a faint smile. Combining abilities with real power, the members of the spirit group are just ordinary people. It's the information age now, so it's actually quite easy to gather some information. Oh. Xiao Jin asked casually, then when are you coming back? Song Yanqing paused for a moment. He was a little surprised that Xiao Jin would ask this question. Then, his expression softened and became even gentler. It's only 3 days. On Su Xiu's mother's birthday, I'll come back to bring you over. Don't worry. Xiao Jin, I'm not in a hurry. I'm just asking casually. Song Yanqing. Okay. It was better to ask casually than not care at all. There were some things that would only change inadvertently. He hung up the phone. There was a deep meaning in his eyes. His happy mood was obvious. Chapter 459. Xiao Fei looked at his guilty expression and asked directly, were you the one who started it? Of course it wasn't me, Musilian retorted loudly. Although I have a bad temper, I don't have a reason to cause trouble for others. It was that bastard. Looking at Xiao Fei's sharp eyes, he swallowed a string of profanities. It was the foreign blonde that I said yesterday. Don't drive my car. Xiao Fei was stunned for a moment. You met again so soon. Could it be that you didn't handle it well yesterday and fought with him at the police station? Then you can still see me at the hospital now? Musilian slapped the blanket angrily. Of course not. I didn't know how I met him again when I went out this afternoon. You know my temper. I hate both new and old. More importantly, he paused for a moment, as if hiding a key piece of information. Anyway, I quarreled with the blonde and fought with him. Unfortunately, my skills were not as good as his. He didn't win. It was too fucking embarrassing. Although the blonde was also injured, it was not worth mentioning compared to Musilian's injuries. Especially when the blonde had called 120 to inform his family to humiliate him and even paid for his medical fees. It was so comprehensive that Musilian seriously suspected that the blonde had planned this all along. When he saw that woman later, Musilian knew that the blonde had indeed planned this all along. Fucking femme fatale. It was all because of the trouble he caused in the past. However, he didn't dare to tell Xiao Fei. Fortunately, Xiao Fei didn't hear the key part. He only said angrily, how can you fight so casually? Wasn't he the one who left the car first? Is there still law? We have to call the police. Xiao Jin walked up. Who beat you up? Musilian saw her and turned his head away in embarrassment to hide his injuries. He said proudly, it's none of your business. I will take revenge for myself. Xiao Jin said, you didn't beat him this time. I don't think you can beat him again. Musilian, Xiao Fei said, fighting is not a good thing. We need to find the police. Xiao Jin, no need. Musilian also said, don't call the police first. Xiao Fei immediately hit Musilian again. Look at how guilty you are. You must be the one who started the trouble by not calling the police, you little bastard. Just you wait, I'll ask your dad to teach you a lesson tonight. Musilian hugged his head and wailed, Mom, I beg you. I'm already so miserable and you still hit me. Can't you give me some face? Xiao Fei, you've already been beaten up and sent to the hospital. Do you still care about your reputation? Musilian, his heart was pierced. What was even more heart-wrenching was that not only did Mu Zichu inform Qiao Fei, even Mu Xiangshan, who was drinking tea outside, was called over. After Mu Zhenming learned that Mu Zilian was fine, he expressed that he would come over at night to express his condolences. His big brother was now on the way. Mu Zilian knew what was going to happen to him next. His face was full of despair. When Mu Xiangshan arrived and saw Mu Zilian's miserable state, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Aya, why did my good grandson get beaten up? Mu Zilian, if you didn't sound so happy, I would think you were expressing anger. When Mu Xiangshan came to see Mu Zilian, Qiao Jin quietly left the ward. Even if Mu Zilian didn't say anything, she had already deduced it. Sure enough, he had provoked a romantic debt. However, no matter what, Mu Zilian was still her family. He didn't do anything bad, so no one could touch him. Chapter 460. Qiao Jin didn't have to waste time looking for the culprit. The culprit had already arrived at the hospital. When Qiao Jin saw Ying Chongrui, she was struggling to pull a 2-meter-tall blonde foreign man over. He wasn't particularly burly, but he looked like the kind of man who had strength. It was expected that Mu Zilian couldn't beat him. The other party's face was also extraordinarily good-looking. It was rare among foreigners, and it wasn't worse than the popular stars in Europe and America. However, when he was pulled by Ying Chongrui, his expression didn't change. Mu Zichu was also beside them. Ying Chongrui dragged him over, and her expression was also very angry. Joel, you really don't know your limits. I already said that he has nothing to do with me, and he doesn't owe me when we broke up. Why are you making trouble for him? He's already being polite by not calling the police for my sake. If you don't apologize this time, you can go back directly. Don't come with me again. She spoke in English. Because she was angry, she spoke quickly and anxiously. The foreign man named Joel just glanced at her casually, as if her words were air. Ying Chongrui was very angry. This is Huaxia. It's our territory. Joel, don't think that you're abroad. When Qiao Jin walked over, Mu Zichu saw her and shouted, Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin nodded. Ying Chongrui turned around. When she saw Qiao Jin, although she was a little surprised, she remembered that she was Mu Zilian's sister. Now that she saw her, it seemed to prove it. An embarrassed expression appeared on Ying Chongrui's face. Qiao Jin walked in front of them and glanced at Joel. Were you the one who hit Qi Lian? Mu Zichu reached out and pulled Qiao Jin back. He did it. The details are still in the process. I'll ask him to apologize to Qi Lian. Qiao Jin's eyes were calm. Is it enough to apologize for hitting someone for no reason? Mu Zichu's expression was also very indifferent. I know what you want to say. It's because I can't beat him. Therefore, they could only settle for the second best and choose the proper method. He spoke too naturally, but when he looked at Joel and then at Mu Zichu, he could understand. Mu Zichu wasn't like Mu Zilian, who often fooled around outside. His life revolved around his studies and family business, and he often worked out. This foreign man was handsome, but he exuded a bandit aura. The man named Joel obviously understood Chinese. When he heard Qiao Jin and Mu Zichu talking to each other, his lips curled into a mocking smile. I'm really sorry. It's all my fault. Ying Chongrui walked up to Qiao Jin and bowed slightly to her. She looked very nervous. I didn't expect that Mu Zilian would be affected because of what happened in the past. Qiao is a classmate I met abroad. Because we are very close, I told him some things about me and the Mu Zilian. I didn't expect that Qiao would make trouble for him. I will pay for the medical expenses and mental damage. I'm really sorry. Because she was in the wrong now, she looked a little humble when she apologized. Before Qiao Jin said anything, Joel said impatiently, you transferred schools because of him. Shouldn't he be responsible for it? Qiao Jin immediately narrowed her eyes and looked at Mu Zilian. What he needs to be responsible for is between him and Ying Chongrui. What does it have to do with you? Joel looked at her arrogantly, raised his chin slightly, and put one hand on Ying Chongrui's shoulder. She is the woman I like. Chapter 461. Every word and sentence was clearly written in Mandarin. Foreigners were open-minded. Ying Chongrui shook off Joel's hand awkwardly. What are you talking about? Now their relationship seemed clear. Because Ying Chongrui was the woman he liked, he wanted to avenge Ying Chongrui. But in fact, Ying Chongrui and Musilian had nothing to do with each other. Musilian was a jerk because he broke up too quickly. It was a stretch to count him as someone who bullied Ying Chongrui because she liked him. Qiao Jin had always believed that every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. Musilian's matter should be solved by Musilian and Ying Chongrui themselves. It was not a reason for outsiders to intervene. You like her, so you helped her deal with my brother? Musichu frowned slightly. Joel looked at him. If it weren't for Musilian's temperament, he would have mistaken Musichu for Musilian and hit the wrong person. Hearing this, he just turned his head arrogantly. Ying Chongrui rubbed her temples with a headache. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned the past and implicated Musilian. I'll apologize to him. He can do whatever he wants. In fact, she didn't blame Musilian. She knew very well that breaking up was a matter between two people. She was not reconciled. She was bullied by others, not Musilian. But after all, he was the first boy she liked in so many years. Musilian was her white moonlight, and she couldn't forget him. It was inevitable that she was a little sad when she was studying abroad. Joel was her classmate, and they had always had a good relationship. During their conversation, she would occasionally talk about the past. She didn't expect that Joel would remember it. This time, when he returned to China, he actually found trouble with Musilian. God knew how he found out about Musilian. Now that he had caused trouble, she had no choice but to take the blame since she was the one who had brought him into the country. Qiao Jin shook his head slowly. Whoever did it has to take responsibility. Since he can hit others, he can't blame others for returning the hand. Ying Chongrui was stunned. She didn't expect Qiao Jin to refuse to apologize. She did not mind, but Joel was a boxer when he was abroad. Sure enough, Joel was still arrogant. You can fight back however you want. It doesn't matter if you come together. Musichu also gently grabbed Qiao Jin's shoulder and said in a calm voice. Don't be impulsive, we can't find the right person now. We're still in the hospital. Mom and Grandpa are inside. Big Brother will be here soon. Don't worry, Big Brother will help Qi Lian settle this matter. Qiao Jin said, there's no need. We don't need to trouble the police. We'll settle it ourselves. If you. Welcome. Just as she finished speaking and the three of them were still puzzled, they saw Qiao Jin's figure move. Bang! Bang! Joel didn't even have time to react before he felt a heavy blow in front of his eyes. He was a boxer, so his reaction speed wasn't slow. However, he didn't see how Qiao Jin did it. Under Mu Chichu and Ying Chongrui's astonished gazes, Qiao howled and fell to the ground, covering his eyes. Ying Chongrui immediately screamed, Qiao, oh my god, my, ha 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 ha. Qiao Jin was fast and accurate. Musilian's left eye was bruised. Now, Joel's eyes were also bruised. It was a comedic sight. Ying Chongrui couldn't help but laugh out loud. Musichu. Chapter 462. This wasn't right. Ying Chongrui knew very well that she shouldn't be smiling so obviously. Qiao looked at Qiao Jin and covered his eyes in disbelief. He said angrily, are you crazy? Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. Am I crazy just because I hit you? Why did you hit Musilian? Qiao looked at Ying Chongrui in disbelief again. Ying Chongrui coughed dryly. Oh my god, Qiao, this is ridiculous. This is really ridiculous. She bent down and helped Qiao up. Qiao asked her, are you laughing? Ying Chongrui said, no way. You saw wrongly. Look, your eyes were hit. You're hallucinating. Qiao was speechless. Ying Chongrui really didn't care. Qiao was a boxer and it was common for him to get injured during training. Now that she saw Qiao Jin hit him, she only felt shocked. However, she really couldn't feel sad about Qiao's injury. Musichu looked at Qiao Jin in disbelief. This was the second time he had misjudged Qiao Jin. Looking at her cold, calm and noble appearance, who would dare to believe that she was actually so good at beating people up? Qiao didn't even need to talk about Qiao. He only saw Qiao Jin move and there was a bruise on Qiao's eye. If she was so good at fighting, then in the past. Qiao Jin seemed to have seen through Muzichu's doubts. He looked at him and said calmly, "After that incident, I found a master to teach me martial arts." Muzichu was speechless. "When did you find a master?" Qiao felt a stinging pain in his eyes and some tears flowed out. He covered his eyes and looked at Qiao Jin. He was shocked and indignant at the same time. He said angrily, "You took advantage of me when I wasn't paying attention. Despicable." After saying this, Qiao rushed over angrily with his fists clenched. He knew that Qiao Jin wasn't an ordinary person and didn't need to show mercy. If an ordinary person was hit by his fist, they would probably be lying on the ground for a long time without being able to get up. However, before Ying Changrui could stop him, Qiao rushed towards Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin reached out with lightning speed and grabbed Qiao's arm with one hand. Qiao pulled hard, and with a bang, the nearly 2-meter-tall man was thrown into the corridor of the hospital. The sound of her back hitting the floor was painful. Ying Changrui and Muzichu, if it wasn't clear just now, it was clear enough now. Qiao Jin was too fast, but that was not the main point. The main point was that she was strong. Looking at the way he flipped Joel over, no matter who it was, Ying Changrui swallowed her saliva. She now had a whole new understanding of this beautiful girl's fighting strength. After that, she saw Joel grimacing on the ground but not crying out in pain. Her eyes were still calm. "Do you still want to fight?" Joel was speechless. These two moves were enough for him to clearly recognize that he was no match for Qiao Jin. It didn't matter if he was prepared or not. The other party's strength and speed were not on the same level as his. But he really couldn't believe that this petite girl in front of him, who was just a petite girl to him, had so much strength in her body. She was too scary. He couldn't swallow his pride and admit that he couldn't do it. He could only hold his waist and glare at Qiao Jin angrily. Because he had never suffered such a loss before. It was obvious that he had beaten up Muzichu. Since he dared to be so arrogant in foreign territory, he most likely had a high status in his country. Chapter 463. The scene was suffocating. Ying Changrui carefully helped Joel up and asked, "Are you okay?" She couldn't help complaining. "I told you not to be impulsive." "Who told you to hit people?" Now he was getting his retribution. Muzichu looked at everything in front of him in silence. Then he turned around and said softly, "I'm going to the ward to check on Muzilian." Qiao Jin said, "Go ahead." Muzichu felt that he needed some time to digest everything. Qiao Jin looked at Joel again and raised his chin slightly. He was arrogant but not overbearing. "Now, go and apologize to Muzilian. No matter what, it's wrong for you to hit people for no reason." Joel said, "What if I don't apologize?" Qiao Jin said, "You won't be able to walk out of this hospital today. You might have to stay and be Muzilian's patient." Joel was speechless. He was good at Chinese, so he could understand what Qiao Jin meant. Ying Changrui pushed him and said, Go and apologize. It's your fault." Joel turned his eyes and looked at Ying Changrui sadly. "I was just helping you vent your anger." He was good-looking. When he acted coquettishly and with his tall figure, it was unexpectedly cute. Ying Changrui was furious. She slapped him on the head and said, "I want you to help me vent my anger. Muzilian didn't do anything wrong to me. When you heard what I said, did you only remember that he dumped me? It's normal for couples to break up. I don't need you to help me vent my anger. It's wrong for you to hit people. Joel, don't use me as an excuse. You know what kind of person you are in your own country." Joel snorted. Ying Changrui helped him up. She looked at Qiao Jin and said apologetically, "I'm sorry. We'll go in and apologize to Chilean now. We'll pay for the medical expenses." Qiao Jin nodded and pointed at Joel. "I'll pay for his medical expenses too. Since you're here, go and find the nurse to apply some medicine." Ying Changrui was speechless. Joel snorted even louder. Xiao Jin returned to the ward and heard Musilian crying to Musichu. Is there any law? Is there any reason? What did I do wrong? All I did was dump her. I was very ashamed after that. I also apologized to her, but I don't have any feelings for her anymore. You really can't blame me for this. After so many years, she actually found someone to beat me up. Women nowadays are too cruel. Xiao Fei was still peeling an apple for him when she heard what he said. I told you to be nicer to girls when you're dating. Even if you've broken up, can you stop looking for girls so diligently? People who don't know better might think that you've been dating multiple girls and that there's no gap between them. It's only a matter of time before you get beaten up. In the past, there was no one to deal with you. Musilian, Mu Xiangshan chuckled from the side. Sigh, it's all retribution. Musilian, Musichu was about to say something, but when he saw Xiao Jin come in, he didn't say anything. Then, everyone saw Ying Chongrui and Joel behind him. Musilian gasped when he saw Ying Chongrui and Joel. Then, he became furious. What do you mean? Isn't it enough that you beat me up outside? Now you've come to the hospital to look for me. Hey! As he spoke, he noticed the bruise on Joel's eye. He immediately burst into laughter. Damn, what's wrong with you? Did you get retribution? Ying Chongrui looked at everyone in the room with different expressions and felt a little embarrassed. Chapter 464. Xiao Fei didn't know them, but when he saw Joel's blonde hair, he immediately knew who they were. Are you the one who hit my son? She pointed at Joel and threw the apple angrily. What do you mean? Isn't it enough that you hit my son? Now you're here at the hospital looking for trouble. Ying Chongrui immediately waved her hand. No, no, no. Auntie, we're here to apologize. We're very sorry about hitting Qi Lian. We're really sorry. She pulled Joel, and Joel came forward and apologized to Musilian unwillingly. I'm sorry. It was my fault for hitting you. Xiao Jin said, you have to be sincere when apologizing. Joel glared at Xiao Jin. Musilian looked at Joel and then at Xiao Jin, and suddenly became vigilant. What do you want? My sister is right. You have to be sincere when apologizing. With your attitude, are you still trying to cause trouble for my sister? Let me tell you, it's fine if you bully me, but if you bully my family, I'll call the police. Everyone, Mu Xiangshan went out with his thermos. He didn't want to see this embarrassing scene. Ying Chongrui smiled even more apologetically. Qi Lian, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that Joel would cause trouble for you. It's his fault for hitting you. Your sister has already beaten him up. Musilian, Xiao Fei, were they hallucinating? Xiao Jin had beaten up this big guy. They looked at Joel and then at Xiao Jin, as if in a dream. No matter how they looked at it, they felt that the difference between the two figures was too big. Xiao Jin, who looked so weak, could beat up Joel? If she could, would she have been bullied in the past? Musilian was stunned. Xiao Fei kept blinking. You. What did you say? Who hit him? Ying Chongrui carefully pointed at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin nodded naturally. I was the one who beat him. Qi Lian couldn't beat him, so he didn't apologize. Now that I beat him, he came to apologize. The winner takes all. Everyone, is that how you use the word? Musilian felt as if he was hallucinating. At this moment, Musichu replied, that's right. It was Xiao Jin who hit Xiao outside. Musilian, Xiao Fei looked at Xiao Jin in shock. Jin, how could you hit someone? Musilian, was that the main point? The main point was how was she going to beat him? He did not believe that an idiot like Xiao would stand there and let Xiao Jin hit him. Just by looking at the dark circles under his eyes, one could tell that the person who hit him did not hold back. Otherwise, why would the marks be so severe? Xiao waved his hand impatiently. I admit it. It was my fault for hitting him. With that, he looked at Xiao Jin and glared at him once more. If not for the fact that he could not beat him, would he have apologized? To think that he would suffer such a huge loss in China. This was a huge humiliation. Once he returned home and trained for a few more years, He did not believe that he could not take revenge. Ying Changrui tugged at him. If you want to apologize, do it properly. It was only then that Xiao lowered his voice unwillingly. I'm sorry. It was my fault for hitting him. I apologize to you. Musilian reacted and blinked his eyes. He wanted to reject the apology, but when he caught sight of Ying Changrui's embarrassed gaze, his eyes flickered. Eventually, he harumphed coldly. Forget it. He did not really hit him hard. It seemed like he was standing up for Ying Changrui. Back then, he did not know that Ying Changrui was being bullied because of his own reasons. This was his way of making it up to her. Chapter 465. Ying Changrui heaved a sigh of relief and thanked him sincerely. Thank you so much, Qi Lian. She thought about it and sighed again. Actually, Joel was wrong. I was really upset when we broke up. It was none of your business that I was bullied. I know you didn't know either, so there's no need to push the blame to you. I've thought things through after I left the country. Thanks to you, I focused on my studies and have a good future now. This was really an accident. Joel was my classmate, so I apologize to you again for his recklessness. Her words were so sincere that it was hard to reprimand her. Xiao Fei knew from Musilian's words that this girl should be the school belle that Musilian had mentioned, and he was her first love. Xiao Fei thought about how she had been bullied because of Musilian. Although it had nothing to do with his son, it was still partly because of him. She couldn't say anything to reprimand him. Now that even Joel had been beaten up, that was that. Let's just forget about it. Xiao Fei waved his hand. It's none of your business. Musilian added, I said forget about it, so forget about it. Take it as compensation for the past. He pursed his lips. I'm still sorry. Ying Changrui smiled confidently and cheerfully. You don't have to apologize. I've already said that you didn't do anything wrong to me. It's normal to break up if you don't like me when you're in a relationship. At least you didn't do anything unforgivable to me, and you didn't cheat on my feelings. There's no need to apologize. Although she said this, one could vaguely hear the jealousy in her tone. This jealousy was because of the end of the past. After all, Musilian was her first love. How could she forget it so easily? Musilian was destined to be someone who wasn't on the same line as her. She just couldn't forget this period of time. Joel saw that something was wrong with her. He clenched his fists and left with Ying Changrui after saying these words. Qiao Jin reminded him faintly. I suggest you apply some medicinal wine. It'll look worse if it gets swollen. Joel, just you wait. There was a saying in China, revenge is a dish best served cold. After they left, Xiao Fei sighed. Look at what's going on. As she spoke, she slapped Musilian's head. I told you not to get involved in romantic affairs. Look at you. Now you're suffering from retribution. What if this happens more often in the future? How many girls have you ruined over the years? Musilian clutched his head in pain. Dating is all consensual. If they're not willing, I can't force them. Why do you have to push the responsibility to me alone? I'm not like those bastards from the Lan family. If not, look at Feng Bingi from the Feng family. That's called inhumane, okay? Compared to them, I'm like a fresh flower. Xiao Fei was even angrier. You have the nerve to compare yourself to some animals. Why can't you learn from your brothers and put your heart in some important places? Do you really think that just because we have big brother and second brother in our family, you can just eat and wait for death? Musilian, that was what he thought. He turned his gaze to Qiao Jin and felt a little incredulous. Qiao Jin, how did you hit him? When did you become so skilled? Damn it. When he was hit, he resisted for a few times and then fell on the street. The other party was a martial arts practitioner. Obviously, they weren't on the same level. Qiao Jin could even hit him. Wasn't she too scary? Chapter 466. Qiao Jin used the excuse he had used to fool Musichu. After that incident, I found a master to teach me martial arts to strengthen my body. Musilian was a little suspicious. Really? But you've only been practicing for a short period of time, while Joel has obviously been practicing for a long time. Can you beat him? Qiao Jin said, my master is a hermit master. Musilian burst out laughing. Don't tease your brother. What hermit master is there now? Qiao Jin said, if you don't believe me, we can have a competition when you're better. Musilian, he couldn't even beat Joel. If he were to fight Qiao Jin, he couldn't laugh anymore. Musichu also stared at him. Mom is right. You're in this state now. You still have 2 years. Why don't you join the army and train yourself? Musilian's eyes widened. Join the army? Are you crazy? Xiao Fei thought for a moment and immediately clapped his hands. That's true. Qilian, why don't you join the army? Musilian. No, I don't want to. He buried himself back under the blanket, his whole body and mind resisting. When Musichu brought up this matter, Xiao Fei's enthusiasm instantly ignited. He even called Mu Junming to discuss it. Then, big brother Mu Chiji also came. Mu Chiji was busy every day, but he still had to take time out to deal with this matter. When he came, of course, he criticized and despised Musilian, but in the end, he comforted him. After learning that Qiao Jin had helped Musilian vent his anger, Mu Chiji was also in disbelief. He was going to deal with this matter. Of course, he was going to call the police and go through legal procedures, but when he heard that Qiao Jin had also hit someone, forget it. He had a headache because of this family. He called Qiao Jin to the door. He didn't ask much about the incident, but looked at her seriously. Qiao Jin, you're 20 years old this year. You're in your 2nd year and will be in your 3rd year soon. Don't you have any plans for your future? Qiao Jin answered honestly, no. Mu Chiji. You're not young anymore. Are you interested in helping me? The Mu family is so big, and you are also a member of the family. You should learn as much as you can about the family as possible. Qiao Jin blinked. The Mu family treated her with sincerity. Usually, such a family business would be guarded against even their relatives. She was just an adopted daughter, but Mu Chiji wanted her to start learning now. It was obvious that he wanted to hand over some of the things to her in the future. She was grateful to Mu Chiji, but she was really not interested. No, Chiji. Junming is still young now, and old master is also here. You and Chi Chu are enough. I'm really not interested in these things. I just want to live a normal life like this. Mu Chiji disagreed and condemned her. How can you be as useless as Qi Lian? Qiao Jin couldn't help but smile. Mu Chiji looked at her deeply and sighed. Forget it. He tilted his head and thought for a moment, then turned around and said, it's fine if you're not interested. If you have something you want to do, just do it. The Mu family is your backing, so you don't have to worry too much. Qiao Jin smiled very gently. I know, thank you. Mu Chiji nodded and brought her back to the ward. Then, the Mu family really put the matter of Musilian joining the army on the agenda. Musilian couldn't accept this bad news at all. Chapter 467. However, he couldn't dissuade his family. After Mu Junming came at night, his family discussed and decided to send him to the army. 2 years was enough to train him. He wouldn't fall behind in his studies. When he came back from the army, he would have plenty of time to study. He wasn't stupid, but he wasn't used on the right path. Now, he was sent to train himself. Mu Junming went to contact some connections and send his son to the army. It was a piece of cake. The time was set for next month. Mu Chilian wished that he could find a rope and hang himself that night after hearing this bad news. Qiao Jin also agreed with him joining the army. She even accompanied him for a while that night. Chilian, don't worry. I saw your marriage line. Your true love might be in the army. When you come back, you'll be a new person. Musilian's face darkened. The army is full of men. You're saying my true love is in there? Qiao Jin. If you think so, I can't help it. Musilian broke down. Get out. Qiao Jin left. Musilian only needed to stay in the hospital for 1 night. In fact, he could be discharged. However, the impact of joining the army was too great. He was mentally and physically exhausted. He wanted to stay in the hospital to think about life for one night. Qiao Jin and Muzichu stayed to accompany him. It was late at night. She was a little hungry, so she went out to buy some things and brought some for Muzichu. There was a bright moon tonight, illuminating the entire imperial capital with its cold white light. The city was still so lively. The streets of Damar were full of people. It was bustling. This was something that couldn't be seen in previous eras. Different eras had different civilizations. Qiao Jin couldn't explain it in the past. Now, she felt that she had gradually fallen in love with this era. Because here, she could experience some things that she had never experienced before. As she thought of this, the smile on her face slowly disappeared. The noise on the streets became lower and lower. She just turned a corner and found herself stepping into another world. Silence. It was extremely quiet. On the empty street, there were only cars parked there. The people talking on the street had disappeared, as if there had never been any traces of people. A gentle breeze blew over, causing the corners of her clothes to flutter. There was a crossroad in front of them. There were no cars on the busy street. After a long while, she slowly smiled. Under the moonlight, she looked like a goddess from the Moon Palace. You finally can't hold it in anymore. I was wondering how long you could hold it in. Fog gradually appeared in front of his eyes. What was originally clearly visible was gradually covered by the fog. Within the fog, something was faintly appearing and disappearing. Under such an atmosphere, it gave people a kind of inexplicable feeling of terror. It was frightening and horrifying. It was as if something was about to surge out of the fog. Roar. There really was something there. Qiao Jin blinked and saw an indescribable monster running out of the fog. It had 8 legs, a wolf's body, and a broken human face on its head. Only the mouth of the human face was complete, but it was wide open, revealing rows of bloody teeth. It looked extremely terrifying. When it ran, its body was slanted. The fog around it kept surging. It seemed that there was more than one monster. They were all in the fog, facing Qiao Jin, waiting for an opportunity to move. Chapter 468. It's too low level. She sighed softly. However, in an instant, the world that was originally dark apart from the fog was suddenly shrouded in threads of red light. Like a woven rope net, they fell from the sky and penetrated the fog. A red rope passed through the monster's body. The monster was vaporized without even screaming. The red silk threads weaved into a huge net, covering Qiao Jin in it. She waved her hand slightly, and a huge red butterfly appeared in the sky. It was so huge that it seemed to cover the entire city. Just a glance was enough to make people terrified. It flapped its wings gently, and the fog rolled away. Those monsters also gradually disappeared with the disappearance of the fog. It stood in the sky, and the city did not return to its original state. Qiao Jin just gently waved her hand, and a figure was forcibly brought over from behind a billboard. Because of the huge force, the moment he was summoned, he had no choice but to kneel in front of Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin looked at him with a faint smile. Grand Ancestor, what a coincidence. The Grand Ancestor's face was full of horror at this time. He couldn't even speak at this moment. He saw the huge butterfly in the sky, oppressing the top of his head. Just looking up was suffocating. There was also that miraculous technique. He really didn't know how Qiao Jin had broken his array formation. Obviously, the array had been broken, but now everything was still not restored to its original state, indicating that Qiao Jin took over his array. Where did she get such powerful strength? His lips were pale, and his whole body was trembling. He was no longer as calm as when they first met. He realized that he might have provoked an unexplainable, terrifying existence. He had never seen such an array master. If you endure for a while, maybe someone will come forward. Why? She sighed slightly. The Feng family is about to be finished. Why don't you cherish this last time? The Grand Ancestor's pupils shrank. The Feng family's matter. She really did the Feng family's matter. He regretted it. If Feng Fei he provoked such an existence, he wouldn't save Feng Fei he at all. You think I did it? Qiao Jin glanced at him. Actually, I don't need to do anything. If Feng Fei he doesn't die, your Feng family will naturally be finished. If you save her, won't you bear the consequences? What your Feng family is doing is just adding fuel to the fire. The Grand Ancestor's eyes widened. He had only ever heard of karma. However, he also knew that some things would backfire if he didn't control them well. However, karma was something that they could not come into contact with for the time being. That person had once said that the more ordinary an existence was, the less likely it was for them to come into contact with karma. Karma was something used to restrain the most powerful existences in the world, but at the same time, it was also a weapon that these powerful existences could use. Qiao Jin controlled karma. In the past 100 years of the Grand Ancestor's life, he had never regretted it as much as now. What was even more regretful was that he had actually attacked her. He had no choice but to make a move against Qiao Jin. He thought that if Qiao Jin was an array formation master, Qiao Jin would be on par with him. After all, Qiao Jin was too young. However, he didn't know that some people in this world couldn't be measured by the surface at all. He knew that he was finished. He felt that Qiao Jin could easily kill him with just a move of her fingers. Chapter 469. I won't kill you. Seeing the expression on his face, Qiao Jin smiled. You know why. Her lofty appearance made people feel like they had to submit to her. After all, the Grand Ancestor was a shrewd person. He looked at Qiao Jin and quickly reacted. She wanted the person behind her to make a move. She knew there was someone behind the Feng family. Even a powerful existence like her would be bound by karma. Therefore, she wanted to use him to lure out the biggest fish. The Grand Ancestor knew, but what could he say? His expression was gloomy. Qiao Jin's smile was still as calm as ever. You've lived for so many years. Whether you've lived enough or not is up to you. Don't you think so? Qiao Jin wanted him to force the big fish out. If the Grand Ancestor couldn't deal with her, he would definitely let the person behind him make a move. The Grand Ancestor was gambling. If the person behind him could deal with Qiao Jin, he would be safe. If they couldn't deal with her, he could at least struggle at death's door for a while. However, the Grand Ancestor was someone who cherished his life. Qiao Jin had long known that. He definitely wouldn't tell the person behind him that he had dealt with Qiao Jin. He would hide it. At that time, it would be too late. His actions would naturally anger the person behind him, but that was a matter for the future. If he could live, who wouldn't be willing? Feng family. The Grand Ancestor's lips trembled. He knew that it would be difficult to protect the Feng family. Just as he was thinking this, he came back to his senses and found himself standing behind the billboard. There was a lively scene around him. Some young people passed by him, happily discussing the latest news in the market. For a moment, the Grand Ancestor regretted it. If he had just been an ordinary person back then, unfortunately, he would have to pay a price for enjoying it. With a pale and gloomy face, Qiao Jin happily walked into a fast food restaurant like an ordinary girl. Sister Qiao. A pleasantly surprised voice came from behind. Qiao Jin turned around and saw Duan Yanru holding 2 large bags. Qiao Jin nodded slightly. Hello. Sister Qiao, I knew it was you. You're too eye-catching. Duan Yanru happily ran over. She had recognized Qiao Jin as soon as she saw him outside. Now that she had come in, it really was him. She was so good-looking and had a unique temperament. She seemed to be glowing in the crowd. Even this fast food restaurant couldn't block her radiance. Qiao Jin was ordering food when he said, "Do you want to eat something? I'll treat you. Sister Qiao treated me last time, so I'll treat you this time." Duan Yanru smiled. She had originally come here to buy egg tarts. Qiao Jin, it's okay, I'll treat you next time. Do you want egg tarts? Duan Yanru's eyes widened. How did you know? Qiao Jin smiled and didn't say anything. He ordered 3 egg tarts and some chicken wings for Duan Yanru. Duan Yanru curiously asked, "Big Sister Qiao, why do you seem to like eating fast food?" The last time she had come, He had also treated her to fast food. Qiao Jin said, "It's nothing. It's convenient, and the taste is okay." When the person in charge of packing the food saw Qiao Jin's appearance, shock appeared in his eyes. When he picked up the chicken wings, he unconsciously ordered a large one for Qiao Jin. When Du and Nyanru saw this, she felt that this was truly the treatment of a great beauty. Following Qiao Jin was really good. Qiao Jin took the food and gave Du and Nyanru her share. Du and Nyanru was a bit embarrassed. "You always treat me to food, so I bought some fruits." Take 2. Chapter 470. Qiao Jin knew that with her personality, she would be embarrassed, so she picked 2 kiwis. Du and Nyanru was overjoyed. "Big sister Qiao, the capital is so big, but we still managed to meet each other. It must be fate. Do you have time to come to my house for a meal? We've been busy for the past few days, and the decorations are almost done. The new house is really beautiful." Qiao Jin thought for a moment. "I'll go when I have time. I don't have much time right now. Someone from my family is still in the hospital." "Ah." Du and Nyanru seemed to be in disbelief. "Oh, okay. Let's meet again next time." Qiao Jin nodded. Before leaving, she reminded her, "Remember not to use your ability carelessly. With so many people from the He Li family dead, there would definitely be a large group of people looking for a formation master. It wouldn't be good if Du and Nyanru was exposed." Du and Nyanru, "I'll remember big sister Qiao's teachings." When she was at home, she was afraid of being seen by her parents, so she didn't dare to use her ability carelessly. Qiao Jin waved at her with a smile and left. Du and Nyanru couldn't help sighing. Good-looking people were really good-looking when they smiled. When Qiao Jin returned to the hospital, Muzichu objected to her buying fast food. That was because he never ate such things. However, she and Musilian ate happily. Muzichu could only look at the 2 of them and shake his head helplessly. A few days later, Song Yanqing returned from abroad. Su Xiu's mother's birthday was coming. Qiao Jin didn't inform anyone. In the morning, Song Yanqing came to pick her up. Ah Sho drove over. Early in the morning, Song Yanqing saw Qiao Jin. Her smile was as gentle as ever. "Long time no see. Qiao Jin, it's only been a few days." Today, she was wearing a simple white short-sleeved shirt, a pair of black shorts, and a pair of sneakers. A refreshing outfit was enough to attract people's love. Song Yanqing was also wearing a black shirt. The buttons were buttoned up to the collar. He was upright and meticulous. He was obviously an elegant young master, but he had such an ascetic aura. It was enough to make some people unable to control themselves. Qiao Jin, on the other hand, was pretty good at controlling himself. When she got into the car, Song Yanqing asked, "I heard that your brother was admitted to the hospital a few days ago." Qiao Jin replied softly, "It's just a small matter." It wasn't as if he had suffered any serious injuries. If it wasn't a small matter, then what was it? He was alive and kicking the next day when he was discharged from the hospital. Seeing that she said it was a small matter, Song Yanqing didn't ask further. Moreover, his investigation was thorough enough. There were some things that he knew, but there was no need to say it out loud. Otherwise, the meaning would be different. Qiao Jin wasn't anyone to him. If he investigated the matter so thoroughly, it wouldn't be good if it caused her to retaliate. It's Su Xiu's mother's birthday today, and only the Lan family members are present. Qiao Jin asked curiously about what happened next. Song Yanqing nodded. The information that was sent back so far is only from the Lan family. The Su family doesn't have any relatives, so it's normal. TSK, this relationship is really abnormal. Didn't the Su family have other more important birthday partners? Only the Lan family was invited. This relationship itself was a bit special. Of course, those who didn't know the reason wouldn't think much about it. However, those who knew the reason were intriguing. In order not to attract the Lan family's attention, Song Yanqing suddenly visited. And he also brought along Qiao Jin. Of course, when the matter was clear, he would personally explain it to the Su family. At this time, the Su family was lively. Chapter 471. Today was also Mother Sue's birthday. Early in the morning, the servants in the house got up to clean up. Although only the Lan family came, the relationship between the two families had always been good. Mother Sue and Mother Lan were busy in the kitchen, and their smiling faces never stopped. Lan Shengbin and Father Su were talking about things, while Su Nan was accompanying the two children of the Lan family to talk about current affairs. Su Xiu was resting upstairs. Generally, he would not come down unless there was something important. He would even avoid eating. The family had long been used to it. At this moment, the doorbell suddenly rang. "Who is it?" Mother Su came out of the kitchen immediately. They happened to be near the door. Lan Shengbin also looked over and asked, "Did you invite others?" "Of course not. It's just our family gathering." Father Su spoke naturally. Obviously, he also regarded the Lan family as a family. At this time, Mother Su opened the door and a surprised voice came, "Yanqing?" This name. Lan Shengbin couldn't sit still at that time. He stretched his neck and looked outside the door. "Auntie, I suddenly came to visit. Please don't be offended. I know it's your birthday this year. I just happened to pass by and brought a gift for you." This gentle and elegant magnetic voice even made Su Nan and the other two people turn their eyes to look at him. "God, you're too polite. You don't have to bring a gift. Come in, come in. Hey, this is... Auntie, this is my friend Xiao Jin. He's with me, so I brought him along. I hope you don't think it's rude." "Of course not. Everyone is a guest. The little girl is so beautiful. Come in. It just so happens that Auntie has prepared the meal. Since you're here, you should eat before you leave. Thank you for your kindness." Just as Song Yanqing had expected, Mother Su was all smiles. She treated them warmly. This showed that there was no problem with them treating people and things. When Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin stepped into the house, it was as if the whole house had a strange brilliance. Just by standing together, the two of them were exceptionally pleasing to the eye. It was as beautiful as a painting. The people from the Lan clan stood up in surprise. No one had thought that Song Yanqing would come. Although the Su clan and the Song clan knew each other, they didn't have much contact with each other. Not to mention the fact that Song Yanqing had taken the initiative to visit other people's homes. No matter which family he visited, it seemed to be an honor for that family. The Lan family also wanted to get to know the people of the Song family. When Song Yanqing came over, Lan Shengbin was so excited that he didn't know what to say. "Brother Yanqing." Seeing Song Yanqing, Su Nan was somewhat surprised. He glanced at Xiao Jin again. He was surprised that Song Yanqing had brought Xiao Jin along. "Lord Song, nice to meet you." Just as Father Su was about to speak, Lan Shengbin walked past him and wanted to shake hands with Song Yanqing. He looked very excited. Song Yanqing glanced down and smiled faintly. "Hello, you don't have to be so polite. Just call me Yanqing." The Lan clan was a rich businessman, but it was not enough for the Song clan. Song Yanqing didn't like to interact with people, let alone shake hands with Lan Shengbin, who was a suspect in transferring misfortune. Lan Shengbin didn't feel embarrassed and immediately called out affectionately, "Yanqing, I've heard a lot about you. I've seen your father before. Now that I see you again, you've really surpassed your father." Father Su also came forward and smiled. "Yanqing, take a seat." "Who is this young lady?" The Su clan didn't often interact with other people. Naturally, they hadn't heard of Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin looked at her and smiled. "Yes." Lan Maoqian's eyes flashed. "I heard that your biological mother is the madam of the Ji family. Are you Ji Fanzheng's half-sister?" Lan Shengbin didn't know how to appreciate favors. At this moment, he also heard some problems. His face changed slightly. "Qianqian. Some things were private and shouldn't be talked about in public." Xiao Jin was brought here by Song Yanqing. If Lan Maoqian irritated Xiao Jin, it was equivalent to irritating Song Yanqing. Xiao Jin smiled brightly. "Yes, what does it have to do with you?" Everyone's face changed. It was obvious that she was a little unhappy. However, Qiao Jin really meant that when she asked, "What did it have to do with Lan Maroqian?" At the dinner table, everyone knew that Qiao Jin did not have a biological mother and was raised by an adoptive mother. Wasn't her words aimed at Qiao Jin? Why did she suddenly target him? Qiao Jin did not care. He just put his elbow on the table and held his cheek with one hand. He smiled and looked at Mao Yonglan. "Auntie, where do you usually take care of your skin? Your skin is so good. You're already so old, but it's not loose at all. It's still so tight. People who don't know would think that you have fake skin." Lan Shengbin's chopsticks fell. Mao Yonglan's hand that was wiping Lan Maoqian's tears slipped and Lan Maoqian felt a burning pain. She immediately screamed. Chapter 474. Seeing their abnormal reactions, Father Su laughed and said, "Aren't you praising your skin?" Mao Yonglan's reaction was obviously different. There was a trace of fear in her eyes until Lan Maroqian slapped her hand away impatiently. "Mom, you're hurting my eyes. What are you doing?" In front of these people, she didn't seem to be the well-bred lady that was widely rumored to be. She exposed her true nature incisively and vividly. Sure enough, even the rich needed to set up a persona. "Sorry." Mao Yonglan apologized absent-mindedly, withdrew her hand, and returned to her seat. She looked at Qiao Jin as if she had seen a ghost for a moment. She couldn't bear to see someone say that to her. Lan Shengbin's face gradually darkened. "Enough, Maroqian, eat your meal." Even Lan Maroqian was shocked to see his father, who had always been gentle and amiable, lose his temper. She lowered her head subconsciously. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She just pursed her lips and didn't dare to cry out this time. The atmosphere at the dinner table was suffocating. Su Nan and Lan Maroqian looked at each other and didn't know what to say. It seemed to be a war between women. However, they didn't understand why Mao Yonglan suddenly stopped talking because of Qiao Jin's words. This didn't seem like Mao Yonglan's style. Song Yanqing came down after a while. Seeing him come down, no one said anything inappropriate. Qiao Jin didn't say anything either until Song Yanqing ate a little. In fact, he didn't eat much at all, but he already gave enough face. After dinner, Mother Su still enthusiastically asked Song Yanqing to stay and play for a while. Song Yanqing said that he had something to do and declined. Then, he left with Qiao Jin. After they left, Su Xiu suddenly went out and came to the stairs. Everyone was surprised to see him suddenly appear. Lan Maroqian looked at Su Xiu and a trace of disgust flashed through her eyes. Su Xiu didn't care about her gaze. He just said to his brother in a hoarse voice, "Brother, come up. I have something to tell you." Su Nan was somewhat puzzled, but he still nodded and went upstairs to follow Su Xiu into the house. After they left, Mao Yonglan couldn't help asking the host, "Hong Man, why did the young master of the Song family suddenly come to celebrate your birthday?" The host's full name was Shong Hongman. She was a little surprised. "What's wrong?" "The Lord Song said that he happened to pass by and remembered that it was my birthday today, so he brought me a birthday present. Besides, I didn't invite him. This time, he came with a friend, which meant that he happened to pass by on business. Sigh, I didn't expect him to remember my birthday. How thoughtful." Seeing Su Mu's clueless look, Mao Yonglan sneered, "Coincidence? How did you happen to bring someone with you?" The host mother frowned. "Doesn't this prove that the Lord Song was just passing by?" Chapter 475. That relationship was from the previous generation, which was too far away from the present. In addition, since the death of the old man, the Su family's relationship with many people had faded. Lan Maoqian's eyes flashed. "Is the one who came just now Brother Yanqing's girlfriend? I haven't heard that your brother Yanqing has any girlfriend. He said she was a friend." Oh. Lan Maoqian didn't know what was going on, but his mood relaxed a lot. Lan Shengbin looked at Lan Maruchen with a look of sizing up. Lan Shengbin asked Mother Su, Lord Song is 25 this year. Does he have a girlfriend or fiancé? Mother Su shook her head and smiled, I haven't heard of any. His family is not in a hurry. With his identity, how can he worry about this kind of thing? He just doesn't want to find one. Now there are many famous girls in the capital aiming for the position of the Song family's young madam. Lan Shengbin gave a meaningful "oh." If it weren't for today's incident, he wouldn't have known that the Su family and Song Yanqing had a close relationship. Song Yanqing specially came up to celebrate Mother Su's birthday when he passed by. The Lan family was rich, but compared with the Song family, it was not worth mentioning. If he could get in touch with the Song family, thinking of this, Lan Shengbin's heart was a little hot. Mao Yonglan looked at their faces and knew what they were thinking. Her face sank, and she got up and said, I'm not feeling well. I'll go back first. Mother Su immediately said, Where are you feeling unwell? Why don't you rest here? Mao Yonglan reluctantly squeezed out a smile, No, I have something to do at home. She rejected Mother Su's proposal and glared at Lan Shengbin. Lan Shengbin had no choice but to take Mao Yonglan and the two children of the Lan family back. What did you see? In the car, Song Yanqing asked Qiao Jin about the Su family. Qiao Jin touched his chin and said with some playfulness, I thought it was a curse array at first, but now it seems that it can change faces. Change faces? Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows slightly. You mean Mao Yonglan? Qiao Jin also looked at him with a faint smile. You can tell? Song Yanqing nodded. When I went in and saw her, I felt that something was wrong. She gave me a feeling of lethargy, as if she was about to die. But looking at Mao Yonglan's state, it didn't seem like it. Qiao Jin said, she changed into a dead person's skin. Of course she would be in this state. Song Yanqing had thought that there might be some entanglements, but he didn't expect there to be such a strange story. Indeed, the more time passed, the more things he saw. Therefore, she quietly listened to Qiao Jin's next words. Qiao Jin said, I can't tell the specifics. My initial guess is that Mao Yonglan isn't the real Mao Yonglan. She's either the lover that Lan Shengbin dumped in the story, or she's another lover. The real Mao Yonglan is dead. The one who put the curse on Lan Shengbin should be Mao Yonglan. I just said a few words to test the waters. Obviously, both Lan Shengbin and this Mao Yonglan knew about it. In just a few words, a melodramatic and cruel drama had begun. Lan Shengbin should have killed the real Mao Yonglan in order to let his lover take the place. And this lover changed her face into Mao Yonglan's. Why didn't he feel uncomfortable? Qiao Jin couldn't understand the thoughts of these people. Song Yanqing said thoughtfully, I just went up and told Su Xiu about this possibility. I just gave him an analogy. Chapter 476. After all, the evidence hadn't come out yet, so he didn't say anything. Su Xiu was a smart person, so he guessed quickly. For so many years, only the Lan family was inexplicably close to the Su family. Their relationship was unbelievably good. But he couldn't remember many things when he was young, so he could only know by asking his parents. Qiao Jin touched his chin, I probably know where the real Mao Yonglan died. Anyway, no matter who this Mao Yonglan was, she was not the real Mao Yonglan. Because the identity of Lan Shengbin's wife had never changed from the beginning to the end. Since the person was wrong now, she must have been replaced by someone else. Qiao Jin had an idea and said, I'm going to check the Lan family tonight. You don't have to go. Wait for my news. Song Yanqing said gently, Okay, be careful. Call me if there's anything. Qiao Jin nodded. The residents of the Lan family provided Qiao Jin with a convenient place. Their home was in a villa area in the suburbs, opposite a big mountain. Qiao Jin appeared on the mountain and used the array to know the movements of the Lan family. She sat on a tree and heard the wonderful drama from the Lan family. Mao Yonglan was a little uneasy since returning to the Lan family. As soon as she got home, she couldn't help quarreling with Lan Shengbin. Lan Shengbin thought she was crazy. That little girl just said it casually. Did you take it seriously? Thinking of the little girl's beautiful face and unique temperament, Lan Shengbin's heart was still rippling. If she wasn't Song Yanqing's person, she just said it casually. Mao Yonglan screamed and touched her face. I've been with it for 20 years. When will it end? Do you know how long I have to calm myself down every night before I can fall asleep? When will I be able to return to my original identity? Lan Shengbin hurriedly stepped forward to cover her mouth and was a little scared. What are you talking about? Maro Chen and Maro Qian are both at home. If you are heard by them, how will you explain it? Are you crazy? Because he was too anxious, his face was a little distorted. Mao Yonglan struggled madly and struggled to free herself from Lan Shengbin's grip. She stood where she was, panting heavily as she glared at him hatefully. Lan Shengbin frowned and turned his face away. He didn't want to see her expression. Don't be crazy. She just said it casually. I don't know why you have such a big reaction. You've persevered for so many years. Can't you persevere for the last few days? He was about to die, about to die. By then, everything will be over. Do you understand? But in the last few days, I can't take it anymore. Mao Yonglan lost control and shouted at him. You should be the one to bear all of this. It's your responsibility. What nonsense are you talking about? Lan Shengbin bellowed. He looked around again and saw that there was no movement outside. Then, he lowered his voice and shouted at Mao Yonglan, you agreed to it back then too. How much wealth have you enjoyed with me now? Now you're telling me that you can't take it anymore? Also, what can't you tolerate in the last few days? He's about to die. Even the immortals can't save him. Once he dies, this matter will be over. He tugged at his tie. She died well at that time. We couldn't find her. Instead, she helped us. It was because they couldn't find where she died that no one could save the Su family. As long as Su Xiu died, all of this would be over. Although the reporters weren't at the scene, they still got some information. Nameless female body corpse appeared. The news. Found it. News. Was. To. The. News. A news. It. Chapter 478. However, because it involved secrets, this news was quickly suppressed by others. It was as if they just wanted the matter to be made public, but didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Lan Shengbin was being investigated at the police station, and he was completely distracted. No one knew better than him who the female corpse belonged to. It was Mao Yonglan's. Mao Yonglan. His real wife's. Yes, that's right, the current Mao Yonglan was not Mao Yonglan at all. He didn't expect that when everything was about to end, it would all be in vain. Thinking of this, Lan Shengbin couldn't help but feel a little desperate. However, he quickly thought, what was the use of just digging it out? He could completely deny that he didn't know. On the surface, his wife was still alive. No one knew that it was Mao Yonglan, and the police wouldn't believe it either. As long as the Su family didn't know, Su Xiu would still die, and he wouldn't be the one to suffer the backlash. Mao Yonglan, oh Mao Yonglan. Thinking of this woman, Lan Shengbin's molars clenched. You're really vicious. For 20 years, she was actually buried under his courtyard, day and night, surrounded by ghosts. They actually lived in such an environment for 20 years. Faced with the police's questioning, Lan Shengbin refused to explain, and insisted that he didn't know who the female corpse was. No one in his family went missing, and he didn't kill anyone in those years. Who knew how the body was buried in his courtyard? His courtyard had indeed been renovated several times in recent years, but not once had the corpse been discovered. This time, it was found after digging very deep. Therefore, all the renovation workers and courtyard workers who worked for the Lan family were found and investigated. However, no one knew what was going on, and no one was suspicious. Since they couldn't find who the female corpse was, they didn't know what was going on. Mao Yonglan had a mental breakdown and couldn't say a word. She was sent to the hospital for observation. Lan Shengbin was now afraid that this woman was full of nonsense and would be caught. However, in the afternoon, the case was taken over by the spirit group. They took Mao Yonglan and Lan Shengbin away. The Su family wasn't calm either. When they learned that something had happened to the Lan family, Mother and Father Su were shocked. Is this an accident? How could Shengbin do such a thing? It's probably a worker who framed him. Today, Su Nan was unexpectedly silent. Hearing this, he suddenly said, "Dad, Mom, I want to tell you something. Whether you believe me or not is secondary. Do you want to hear me out?" Seeing their son's serious look, the Su parents were a little surprised. "What do you want to say? We'll listen." Su Nan hesitated for a moment, pursed his lips, and told him everything that Su Xiu had told him. For something like this to happen in Uncle Shengbin's family, it might not be an accident. That corpse belongs to Auntie Yonglan. When Father and Mother Su heard this, they were stunned. "What nonsense are you talking about? Your Auntie Yonglan was perfectly fine. How could she have become a corpse? Do you know what you're saying?" Su Nan smiled. "I know you don't believe it. I didn't believe it when I first heard it. If it weren't for today's incident, I'm afraid we would have been kept in the dark for the rest of our lives. Until Su Xiu died, the Lan family could still get away with it. No one would know why my brother died." His eyes turned red. The host mother was dumbfounded. She felt as if a bomb had exploded in her head. Chapter 479. This. What does this have to do with your brother? Mother Su muttered to herself. Su Nan said, "Do you remember that I told you that I found a fortune teller on the internet? This morning, the fortune teller got his number from somewhere and sent him a message through the internet. He told Su Nan all the things he found out, so now Su Nan was clear about it." Father Su was shocked. "What fortune teller?" Mother Su didn't tell Father Su because it was too unexpected. Su Nan didn't rush to answer, but continued, "My brother's illness wasn't an accident at all. That year, Shengbin, Lan Shengbin, that bastard, had a mistress outside, and Auntie Yonglan found out. She was pregnant at that time and was so angry that she had a miscarriage. However, Lan Shengbin didn't care about it at all. Later, his mistress got pregnant and wanted to be promoted. Lan Shengbin colluded with his mistress to kill Auntie Yonglan and let his mistress be promoted. However, the plan was discovered by Auntie Yonglan. When she escaped, she was caught carelessly. Before she died, she cursed Lan Shengbin, saying that she would destroy his family and leave him without a complete corpse. At that time, the Lan family had all kinds of situations and went downhill. During that time, the Lan family had problems. "Mom, Dad, aren't you very clear about it? My brother was only 3 years old at that time. The Lan family couldn't find a way to solve the problem, so they found a master. The master let Lan Shengbin take his place, so Lan Shengbin's curse was transferred to my brother. So, my brother's illness was all caused by the Lan family. Why do you think the Lan family was so good to us? It was because they wanted to see my brother die with their own eyes. They felt ashamed, so they kept in touch with us, Pa." The more Su Nan spoke, the more agitated he became. Then, Mother Su slapped him in the face. The crisp sound resounded through the house. Father Su was stunned. He was completely shocked by Su Nan's words and didn't react to Mother Su's action. Mother Su's eyes were red. She looked at Su Nan with a bitter expression. "Do you know what you're talking about? Your Uncle Lan is such a good person. How can you think of him like that? It doesn't matter what I think. The important thing is that he did these things." Su Nan didn't care about the slap on his face. He looked at Su Mu with red eyes and said, "You believe what he said because he has a good relationship with us for 20 years. Why don't you think about why he approached us in the first place? Now that the time is up and Su Xiu is about to die, let's see if he will care about us when the time comes. The corpse found in his villa belongs to Auntie Yonglan. The woman beside him is not Auntie Yonglan at all. If you don't believe me, you can wait for the result." Father Su was also confused. "Then the one beside him looks the same as Yonglan." It's not like we don't know each other after all these years. No one would believe such a bizarre thing. Sunan also knew that he couldn't force it. I know. There will be a solution. I won't let Su Xiu die. No matter what price he had to pay, now that he knew the truth, he felt that he could not let the Lan family get what they wanted. The price that Lan Shengbin had to pay back then should be paid by him. Su Mu weakly collapsed on the sofa. For a moment, she couldn't believe what Sunan said. Cursing, exchanging lives. Was there still a woman who wasn't Mao Yonglan? Who was it? How could this be possible? Chapter 480. The Feng family came and took the Lan family away. When Qiao Jin received the news from Song Yanqing, he was not surprised. Qiao Jin said, "This matter was originally done by the Feng family's eldest son. Now that the matter has been exposed, he is afraid of being investigated." Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows slightly. "How do you think the Su family will end this matter?" Qiao Jin said, "I promised you that since I've found the bodies, I'll exchange their lives for theirs. Don't worry, we'll see the results tonight. Lan Shengbin will walk right into the trap." She left this sentence, and Song Yanqing naturally believed her. Lan Shengbin was now taken away, but he was not in a hurry. He could not let the Feng family find out that the Song family was also involved. Many things were interesting when hidden in the dark. Not long after Qiao Jin's words, Lan Shengbin appeared at the Su family's house that night. He had obviously been detained, but now he ran out directly and went to the Su family's house. When Su Mu opened the door and saw Lan Shengbin, she did not subconsciously smile to welcome him. Her face was a little stiff. At this time, Lan Shengbin did not care, or even if he saw it, he would not care. He directly pushed the door open and ran inside, shouting loudly, "Su Xiu, Su Xiu." He was shouting so urgently, as if there was something important going on. He never called Su Xiu before. When Su Mu behind him heard him call Su Xiu, her heart immediately turned cold. She said, "What are you shouting for? Su Xiu is sleeping." She couldn't figure out what she felt in her heart. She couldn't believe what Sunan said, but she didn't know how to face the Lan family. "What are you calling me for?" Su Xiu came down. He stood at the door, tall and straight, dressed luxuriously. He was obviously a young man who should have an extraordinary life, but because of this strange disease, he was forced to hide at home. There was a gloomy atmosphere. He wore a mask that covered most of his face, and a pair of clear eyes looked at Lan Shengbin coldly. "Su Xiu, please help your uncle one last time. This is your uncle's only request." When Lan Shengbin saw Su Xiu, he was like a mouse that had seen meat. He ran toward Su Xiu but was stopped by Su Xiu halfway. "What are you doing?" She felt that there was something wrong with the excited Lan Shengbin. Lan Shengbin shook her off and walked toward Su Xiu. Su Xiu saw him throwing his mother and his eyes turned fierce. "What are you doing?" When he saw that Lan Shengbin was about to come up, he lifted his foot and kicked Lan Shengbin down. Lan Shengbin didn't expect him to kick him directly. He screamed and fell down the stairs. He fell to the ground and startled the host mother. Sunan felt that something was wrong. He opened the door and saw the situation. He immediately came forward to stop Lan Shengbin and scolded, "You dare to come here? What do you want?" Lan Shengbin looked at Sunan and cried, "Sunan, Uncle was forced to do this. Uncle had no other choice. In any case, your brother won't live long. He'll die sooner or later. Su Xiu, kill yourself. Kill yourself right now." He seemed to have lost his mind, and when he spoke those words, it immediately shocked the Su clan's people. "Are you crazy?" The host mother screamed, "Lan Shengbin, do you know what you're talking about? Are you out of your mind? If you're crazy, you can die by yourself. You actually asked my son to kill himself." The host mother was his reverse scale. Lan Shengbin was undoubtedly crazy now. Chapter 481. I can't help it. Anyway, he won't live long anyway, right? Lan Shengbin was now crying and his face was twisted. His whole person was very ugly. There was no trace of his previous high-spirited appearance. Mao Yonglan's body was dug out, which caused a lot of stimulation to him. The result in the Feng family was not very good. He was really forced into a corner. Now, as long as Su Xiu died, it would be fine. As long as he died, this matter would be over. You lunatic, get out of my way. Get out. Otherwise, I will kill you. Su Nan was also very angry by his words. He was trembling and couldn't wait to kill Lan Shengbin right now. Lan Shengbin didn't deserve to be called a human being if he dared to say such word. Su Xiu raised his chin and said softly, even if I die, I will never let you do as you wish. You, Lan Shengbin's eyes turned red and suddenly saw a fruit knife on the table. He immediately ran over and picked it up. Since you don't want to commit suicide, then I will help you. If you die, this matter will be over, and the curse of that crazy woman will be gone. After he said these words with a twisted expression, he rushed to Su Xiu with the knife. Su Mu screamed, Su Nan, Su Nan. Su Nan immediately stepped forward to pull Lan Shengbin, but it was only a matter of 2 or 3 steps for him to go upstairs. Lan Shengbin instantly appeared in front of Su Xiu. Su Xiu just looked at him silently. When Lan Shengbin raised the knife, his wrist stopped in midair. Then, he wailed. Suddenly, he felt that his face was extremely itchy. This itch was getting more and more intense, almost to the point where he could not control it. He had no choice but to throw down the knife and scratch his face with a violent expression. He scratched very hard, as if it wasn't his face. The more he scratched, the more itchy it became. He had to scratch with all his strength until his skin and flesh hurt to relieve the itch. In the shocked eyes of Su Mu and Su Nan, they saw Lan Shengbin scratching his chin like a madman. His lips began to change and his skin turned dark. With his scratching, countless small blood beads gushed out. Even his skin and flesh were scratched off by Lan Shengbin, but he didn't notice it. He just wailed, "It's so itchy, so itchy. Why is it so itchy? Why is it so itchy?" It was too itchy, and he couldn't control it at all. The itchier it was, the more he wanted to scratch it. It was as if he could only stop this itchiness by scratching the bone. Every time he scratched, blood would spurt out, but he couldn't care less. Su Xiu watched everything quietly. At the same time, he gently lifted his mask. The originally hideous marks covered his entire jaw, almost completely destroying the corners of his lips. The black stains were like solidified paint, and the corners of his lips could no longer be called the lips of a normal person. However, it was also at this moment that the marks on his face were visibly disappearing. The scars that had accumulated over the years were like the outer skin of a broken shell. Gradually, they began to fall off, revealing fair skin with some light pink marks. His wounds were healing, and everything was getting better. More and more scars appeared on Lan Shengbin's face, and his expression became more and more ferocious. When Su Xiu gradually turned into a handsome young man who looked exactly like his older brother, he looked at Lan Shengbin and said softly, "Now, do you know how I've lived all these years?" Chapter 482. Lan Shengbin couldn't hear anything now. His head was full of itchiness. Itchy, I'm so itchy. He scratched himself until his face was covered with blood. He even began to roll on the ground. The Su family was stunned. Especially the host mother, who watched this magical scene unfold in front of her. Su Nan's words were verified one by one in front of her. At that time, she thought that Su Nan was talking nonsense. Without seeing it with her own eyes, who would dare to believe that all of this was true? Her education didn't allow her to believe such an outrageous thing. However, the fact happened in front of her now. She saw such an outrageous thing happen with her own eyes. The hideous wound on Su Xiu's face was healed, while Lan Shengbin's face was ruined. She was stunned and looked at Lan Shengbin, who was rolling on the ground. She was both scared and somewhat unable to hold back her hatred. If all of this was true, then all of this was true. Then, in the past 20 years, she suddenly trembled all over. Su Nan saw that Su Xiu's face was healed. It could be said that it was a miracle that even medical miracles couldn't compare with. He didn't care about this strange situation and ran to Su Xiu excitedly. Brother. He looked at Su Xiu's face. Su Xiu grinned at him, but that smile was a bit sad at this time. Brother, is my face better? He felt that the scar on his face was fading. He felt that the corner of his lips was in contact with the air. He was no longer suppressed by the tight mask. He smelled the warm smell of this family. It's done, it's all done. Su Nan saw the miracle happen with his own eyes. His eyes were red and tears fell down. It was said that men don't cry easily. However, knowing what his younger brother had experienced for so many years, which elder brother wouldn't feel sad in his heart? He was finally free. He didn't have to die, Su Xiu didn't have to die, and his younger brother didn't have to die. He hugged Su Xiu. Su Xiu returned his hug with a smile. Both of them didn't care about Lan Shengbin, who was rolling on the ground. At this time, Su Mu also reacted. She was also very excited, but she was calmer than the children. Su Nan, call the police and let them take this man away. She pointed to the ground and said to Su Xiu at the same time, Xiu, put on a new mask and wear it for a few more days. They said that they'll find an old Chinese doctor to treat you. It was impossible for a person to believe that there were unimaginable things in this world unless they witnessed it with their own eyes. Now, Mother Su believed it. But at the same time, she also knew that if others found out that Su Xiu had suddenly recovered, they would be suspicious. Su Xiu understood his mother's worries and nodded. I know, Mom. Su Nan called the police, while Su Mu called his father, who was busy outside. She couldn't hide the excitement in her tone. After reporting the news to Su's father, she looked at Su Nan with red eyes. She felt guilty. I'm sorry. Mom couldn't imagine such a thing at that time. I was too excited. Su Nan smiled in relief. Mom, it's okay. I understand. His mother was an educated and high-ranking member. Who would believe in such a legend that she had never experienced before? For the past 20 years, Lan Shengbin had been on very good terms with their family. Even his adoptive parents were taken care of by him. The two of them were kind to begin with. They really couldn't imagine that such a terrible thing would happen. But now that the truth was out, Mother Su had refreshed her worldview. Chapter 483. The wailing Lan Shengbin was soon taken away by Su Nan's call to the police. At the same time, the ambulance arrived. Seeing Lan Shengbin's situation, even the police and doctors were shocked. No one had ever seen such a strange situation. In the end, they could only give Lan Shengbin an anesthetic to make him fall asleep. Because even the tranquilizer didn't have much effect, it was too scary. Although the police had doubts, Lan Shengbin was now involved in a special murder case. In such a situation, they couldn't suspect that someone had poisoned him. As long as Su Nan followed them back to the police station to make a statement, only Su Xiu and his mother were left at home. Su Xiu's mother looked at Su Xiu and touched his cheek with trembling hands. It's been so many years. It's been hard on you. As she spoke, tears fell. Mom never thought that I would lead a wolf into the house. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Facing Su Xiu, she broke down emotionally. Thinking of her son's 20 years of torture, she couldn't help but feel heartache. She used to think that her son had a strange illness. Who would have thought that it was a curse from someone who scared him? Su Xiu touched his mother's face and saw the hair on her temples. He felt a little sad. Mom, it's not your fault. It's been so many years. You and Dad have worked hard. He saw how hard the Su family had worked for him. They had looked for doctors both at home and abroad, but the Su family never gave up on him. Even when everyone pointed at him and called him a monster when he was young, it was the Su family who gave him the only warmth. No matter what, his parents and brother loved him the most in the world. No matter how ugly and scary he was, they never despised him. It was under the careful care of his family that he didn't have any psychological problems. Otherwise, he would have died a long time ago under that kind of torture. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of dying for so many years, but when he thought of his family and brothers who had sacrificed for him, he couldn't bear to do so. Su Xiu's mother's eyes were filled with tears. Now you're fine. Everything is fine. It's all over. She touched Su Xiu's cheek and saw his flawless face. She couldn't help but feel comforted. She was a little puzzled. Who helped you with this? Su Xiu hesitated and said, Mom, do you remember Brother Yanqing coming to our house? Mother Su's eyes widened. Guanqing. Su Xiu nodded. Brother Yanqing revealed some things to me. Although he didn't say it explicitly, I really have to thank him for my recovery this time. However, Brother Yanqing doesn't want others to know, so we can't reveal it. Su Mu was not an ignorant person. When she thought of Song Yanqing's identity, she immediately thought of the reason why he wanted to hide it. In that position, he might be able to come into contact with things that ordinary people could not. Su Mu nodded and gritted her teeth. I want to know what Lan Shengbin, that heartless man, did back then. Your brother said that Yonglan was already, she didn't dare to believe it. Now that Lan Shengbin had been taken away, who was his current wife, Yonglan? There was still a lot of fog surrounding this matter. Su Xiu lowered his body and said, Mom, Lan Shengbin has already reaped what he sowed. We will know what happened very soon. Mother Su also nodded. Your father will be back soon. He will be overjoyed. Chapter 484. After Father Su came back and saw Su Xiu's recovered appearance, the whole family naturally hugged each other and cried. Now that the biggest problem in their hearts was gone, it was natural for them to be excited. However, Lan Shengbin was still a thorn in their side. That heartless thing. My dad even helped the Lan family in the past. Speaking of this, Mother Su felt that she was blind back then. She didn't know what she had done to be targeted. Father Su was not good with words and couldn't say anything too hateful. However, his hatred for Lan Shengbin was obvious at this moment. He scolded him for being heartless. After scolding him, he reacted and said, in the past, Lan Shengbin did have a favored mistress by his side. Didn't they say that she was pregnant? They even made a big fuss back then. That era was not as open as it was now. Basically, any bit of news that spread in the circle was very shocking. Lan Shengbin's mistress' pregnancy was not a secret. Mother Su nodded. Didn't they say that Yonglan was so angry that she had a miscarriage? How could it be so fast? She gave birth to Lan Maroqian and Lan Marochen, a pair of fraternal twins. The three of them looked at each other and had a tacit understanding. The Lan family's matter was probably more terrifying than what they knew. Just the matter of Mao Yonglan switching people, it was incomparably bizarre. In the hospital, Lan Shengbin acted up very quickly. His entire face was scratched up by himself. The medical staff had no choice but to continuously inject him with all kinds of tranquilizers. However, injecting too many of these things would still be harmful to the body. For the current Lan Shengbin, there was no difference whether it was harmful or harmless. It was obvious to the naked eye that he wouldn't live long. However, Lan Maroqian was still making a scene in the hospital. I don't care. You must save my dad. What kind of strange disease did he get? You must save him. Lan Maroqian was crying at this moment. She looked at her father in the intensive care unit, but there was nothing she could do. She didn't know why her father got this strange disease overnight. The medical staff was helpless. Everyone had tried their best but was still scolded by Lan Maroqian. However, because the other party was from the Lan family, they had to serve her well. Of course, the news of Lan Shengbin's strange illness was not hidden from the media reporters. Someone had sneaked in, wanting to get some exclusive news. Lan Maroqian was very busy dealing with the leaking of this news, but Mao Yonglan was nowhere to be found. Lan Shengbin, who was in the ward, was calm for a while. He called Lan Maroqian in. Separated by a protective cabin, Lan Maoqian's face, which was covered with a mask, was stained with blood. It was so hideous that Lan Maroqian could not bear to look at it. She could only cover her face and cry helplessly. His pair of grey eyes revealed his struggle to survive. Go find the Su clan and beg them to let Su Xiu come back. If he comes back, father won't die, Lan Maruchen only understood half of it. He cried and asked, "Dad, what should I change?" Lan Shengbin glared at her. Go, go, go now." He already couldn't say too much. He knew that there wasn't much time left. His time was almost up. Mao Yonglan didn't have much time left in the 20 years she had left behind. Lan Maruchen hurriedly went to the Su clan. At this time, the Su clan didn't want to see anyone from the Lan family. However, Lan Maruchen was innocent. Father Su couldn't bear to see her like this, so he let Lan Maruchen in. Who knew that as soon as she came in, she went to find Su Nan. She mistook Su Xiu, who had recovered in the living room, for Su Nan. She stepped forward and grabbed his hand, crying, "Su Nan, save my father. Save my father, okay?" Chapter 485. Save what? How can I save him? Su Xiu's tone was indifferent as he shook off Lan Maruchen's hand. He had never liked Lan Maruchen. Lan Maruchen did not like him and hated him. He could tell in the past. Now that he had recovered, he basically did not have a good impression of Lan Maruchen. Lan Maruchen's tears gushed out. I don't know. Dad said that as long as he swaps with your brother, it'll be fine. Can you let your brother swap with my dad? We're so close. It's only right for you to help, right? Mother Su's temples were throbbing as she listened. Her heart was heaving up and down. She stood up and looked at Lan Maruchen. At this moment, she was a little resentful. Do you know what you're talking about? Do you know what your dad did? Lan Maruchen was frightened by Mother Su's rare stern expression. He took a step back and looked innocent and wronged. I don't know. If you don't know, why did you listen to your dad and beg us? Su Xiu's tone was mocking. Mother Su said, if you don't know, then I'll tell you. She told Lan Maruchen the whole story. After Lan Maruchen heard it, his worldview was refreshed. Of course, he did not believe it at all. He screamed, "Auntie, are you crazy? My mother isn't my mother. My dad's curse back then was transferred to Su Xiu? What are you talking about? Do you know that it's the 21st century now?" Her expression was the same as Mother Su's. The difference was that Mother Su could see the truth and calm down. Even if Lan Maruchen saw the truth, he might not be able to calm down. I don't even know what you're talking about. She was so angry that she wanted to leave on the spot. However, when she thought of the consequences of leaving, she could not bear to see her father leave. If her father left, wouldn't the Lan family be ruined? Her brother had to run a company. What if something happened to her life in the future? Her eyes were hazy with tears. Even so, it's been so many years. Our family has compensated you enough. Why can't we let Su Xiu be a good person to the end? As long as he swaps with Dad, Dad won't have to suffer anymore. Get out of here right now. Mother Su did not expect that she would not speak in human language at all. She used her last bit of self-restraint to control herself. She was furious. I used these 20 years of friendship to stop myself from hitting you. I only thought that your father was heartless. I didn't expect that the child he raised was also a heartless thing. Lan Maruchen's eyes widened. How am I heartless? I just don't want get out. Even the mild-tempered Father Su couldn't take it anymore. He reached out and grabbed a broom, his veins popping out of his forehead. If you don't get lost, I'll beat you up myself. I. Report. This time, it was a dorm cultivator. He directly threw a knife beside Lan Maruchen. Lan Maruchen was so frightened that he screamed and ran away while covering his head. Mother Su sat down angrily. She could not stop her tears from flowing out of anger. It's been so many years, so many years. The Su clan was devoted to the Lan family. Who would have thought that each and every one of them would be so heartless and unscrupulous? Chapter 486. Su Xiu hugged his mother in his arms to comfort her. Su Nan sent a message saying that he had contacted the master. Someone would take care of the follow-up matters for the Su family. Of course, it wasn't Song Yanqing. It was the Feng family. When the great ancestor heard that his favorite junior had done such a thing, he didn't care at first. Feng Xinlin, who was the person in charge of the Feng family, had an extraordinary bearing. When she brought Lan Shengbin back to the Feng family to explain this matter to the great ancestor, she said in an indifferent tone, "Lan Shengbin was my friend back then. I couldn't just watch something happen to my brother, so I found a suitable family. Zhu helped me. Now that this matter has changed, I hope the great ancestor can help me clean up the mess." He was also the only person in the Feng family who could see the great ancestor other than Zhu. At this time, he couldn't see that the great ancestor, who was sitting on the main seat, had a trace of fatigue between his eyebrows. When the great ancestor heard this matter, he was a little indifferent at first. He only said lightly, "Hasn't the person you mentioned been dealt with?" Feng Xinlin looked a little hesitant. "I don't know what happened, but the array was changed back. He was cursed and is about to die." The great ancestor opened his eyes and said meaningfully, "Zhu did it, but someone can change the array back." Feng Xinlin nodded, "Yes, so I hope the great ancestor can see what's going on." The great ancestor pondered for a moment, holding a string of Buddhist beads in his hand. At this time, he pinched the Buddhist beads faster. His heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what was going on, so he asked, "Has there been any abnormality in the family of the transfer curse recently, or has he been in contact with anyone?" "Logically speaking, there shouldn't be." Feng Xinlin hesitated for a moment. "There is a small matter, but I don't think it matters much." The great ancestor was now afraid of this kind of small matter, and murderous intent overflowed. "Speak." Feng Xinlin didn't dare to hide and quickly said respectfully, "That family's surname is Su, and the person who was transferred is called Su Xiu. 2 days ago, on his mother's birthday, the young master of the Song family went to visit, but he was sick. I heard that he just happened to pass by, and he brought a friend." Before he could finish, the great ancestor felt a chill in his heart. He had an ominous premonition. Who did he bring? Feng Xinlin hesitated for a moment. "I think Zhu paid special attention to Qiao Jin some time ago. Is she all right?" "Pa." The great ancestor smashed a small incense burner on the table onto Feng Xinlin's head, raging, "You bunch of trash, why didn't you report this earlier? Why? Both of you still want me to clean up after you've done something wrong. You're really capable. Trash." It was rare for him to be so angry, and Feng Xinlin immediately realized that something was wrong. Cold sweat dripped down her forehead. "Great ancestor, you don't have to care about this matter anymore. Hurry up and get out. If he wants to die, then let him die. You have to push all the blame to someone else. Otherwise, don't blame me for not being able to save you when the time comes." The great ancestor couldn't tell how terrifying Qiao Jin was. At this moment, facing the continuous attacks, he couldn't wait to skin this group of descendants of the Feng family who targeted him alive. Each and every one of them, how could they be so useless and provoke someone they shouldn't provoke? Feng Xinlin's eyes turned fierce, and her bearing sank. She turned around and left. The fact that the great ancestor was so angry meant that the matter was a bit serious. Chapter 487. The great ancestor sat in his seat, and he was still thinking about what Qiao Jin said at the time. Now, one by one, they couldn't escape from the net. The Feng family was going downhill from beginning to end. Even the great ancestor felt that there was no way to reverse the situation. She wouldn't kill him in order to lure out the people behind. If one could live, who didn't want to live? He had lived for so many years, but he still felt that he hadn't lived enough. The great ancestor's eyes sank. After thinking about it again and again, he decided to inform the people over there. If he could deal with it, he could linger at death's door. If he couldn't deal with it, he would be the last to die. When the Feng family withdrew from the Lan family naturally inevitably went into decline. The ins and outs of the matter were quickly investigated. Mao Yonglan's body, the current Mao Yonglan, was found hanged in the villa. Lan Shengbin died in the hospital soon after. The sudden death of the two caused a lot of chaos in the Lan family. The two children, with Lan Mouchen's current foundation, couldn't establish a foothold in the Lan group for the time being. Many shareholders took advantage of the situation. Lan Marochen and Lan Marochen were under pressure for a while, and they fell from the clouds to the mortal world in an instant. Qiao Jin knew what happened in the past after seeing Mao Yonglan's body. She told Song Yanqing everything. As for whether to tell the Su family or not, it was up to them to decide. 20 years ago, Lan Shengbin did have the intention of killing his wife to support his lover as everyone thought. However, Mao Yonglan was an array master. Although she was an ordinary array master, ordinary people like them couldn't deal with her. At that time, Mao Yonglan had just had a miscarriage. She also knew that her husband wanted to kill her and replace her with his lover. She was furious. Of course, she wanted to deal with this adulterous couple. However, Lan Shengbin had a good relationship with the young master of the Feng family, Feng Xinlin. The Feng family's background was already revealed at that time. Among all kinds of small matters, Mao Yonglan's matter was easily solved. The Feng family didn't care about such small matters at all. At that time, Lan Shengbin had realized that Mao Yonglan was not an ordinary person, so he asked Feng Xinlin to find him a helper. At that time, Mao Yonglan discovered it quickly and escaped. In the end, Feng Xinlin suggested a vicious method, which was to change Mao Yonglan's skin. This kind of skin change was not a bloody and cruel method, but a change of Mao Yonglan's face. The little lover would gradually become Mao Yonglan's appearance, and Mao Yonglan's right to exist would be taken away, slowly dying away. This was because Mao Yonglan had left behind a flaw when she escaped, and the array master that Feng Xinlin had brought had tampered with it. Mao Yonglan knew that she was powerless to reverse the situation, so she left behind such a vicious array formation to deal with Lan Shengbin. Lan Shengbin knew that he would not be able to solve this array formation by himself, therefore, he decided to transfer it away. As for the Su clan's Su Xiu, he was the most suitable candidate for this task. Therefore, he transferred the formation to a child who was only 3 years old at the time. Knowing that the Su clan was also rich and powerful, he still wanted to establish a good relationship with the Su clan. As long as he waited for 20 years, this matter would come to an end. Even Lan Shengbin had thought countless times that as long as Su Xiu couldn't hold on, he could just commit suicide. He didn't expect the Su clan to be so persistent. After persevering for so long, he actually failed at the last step. Even if he died, he probably wouldn't understand why. As long as Su Xiu died, everything would be over. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.